Former National Police Commissioner Riah Phiyega was a central figure in the Marikana Massacre story 9 years ago. She had only been in the position for just 2 months when the events unfolded. She also escaped censure after retiring in 2017. She joins us now to share her recollections. Mama Phiyega, good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time tonight. It's 9 years on. What are your reflections today?
Good evening, Bongiwe, and thank you very much for inviting me to join you on this show. Let me start off by saying I acknowledge that this time of the year is a very difficult time for the entire nation, and in particular for the victims of those, for the families of those who were victims of the tragedy. It is particularly a difficult time for me because it is at this time that I have engagements such as this one. When the killings of the victims of the tragedy of Marikana occurred, I was in real shock. I was in disbelief. I was only 64 days in the police service, and that for me was a baptismal of fire. I recall coming back from Marikana in the wee hours of that morning, way beyond 4 o'clock, to refresh, to get ready for the following day. I could hardly close my eyes because of the disbelief and the devastation that I faced as a leader of that service, that the service faced on that particular day. Of major concern to me were the families of those who were victims of that tragedy. In my mind, I was thinking of what happened on the 16th. I was also reflecting on what happened the 10 days before the 16th. At that point in time, 44 people were victims of that tragedy. As a mother, as a grandmother, as a sister, as a wife, as a patriotic citizen of this country, I was indeed deeply affected. I feel the pain, the suffering that family members of these victims are enduring today, and they will endure for many, many more years. I appreciated the opportunity I was offered during the Police Commission to make an apology on behalf of the service for the tragedy that had happened. I continued to do so in various platforms, and even today I want to thank you for this small opportunity that has been extended to say the loss of life of the 44 people that perished during that operation is highly regretted.
And when you reflect back and look at what, you know, the families had to say at the time, they were saying that, you know, they really were not moved by the apology that you then made during the commission. And as we speak, even, you know, this afternoon, there's, you know, I'd like to borrow from what the Mail and Guardian also says here, speaking to one of the widows, Nokuthula Zimbambele, who says that, you know, there are things that make a woman sympathy and mercy. She has none of that. And she says that she has never paid for what happened to our husbands. She kept her salary and she has never apologized to us. I cannot believe that she now wants to clear her name. Let's talk about how the families have continued to feel like you've shown no remorse. What did that do to you at the time? I remember just how charged up emotions were when you had offered that apology in the commission.
You know, Bongi, I will tell you something that I live by. Mourning is what we all see externally. But grief is something that sits deep in each and every individual. And none of us can ever try and understand how people are grieving. I acknowledge the fact that some of those expressions are real, because the grief that is sitting in a lot of these family members is real. I acknowledge that. But I can tell you that the sentiments I'm expressing are real.
Mm. And today, they are potentially watching to hear what you have to say. What do you say to them, especially those who are still not convinced that you share their pain?
What I have articulated earlier on, that the pain that has been endured by family members of all the 44 victims of the tragedy of Marikana, I share, and I apologize as a person. I have that moral obligation that I feel deep inside me to apologize to everybody. And I do believe that when I was articulating our apology as a service, when I was a leader of the police service, I did that very sincerely. And I remain saying that. And I just hope that at some point in this journey that is long, complex, and very painful, we will find a meeting of hearts and a meeting of minds, and that we can have some talk therapy between ourselves to journey through this difficult situation.
I'm going to ask us just to pause and go for a quick ad break. When we come back, I need us to look into the operation, because there's still some unanswered questions, and really what we do not know was happening behind closed doors, and also looking back at the operation in and itself, if you think you would have done things differently. But let's then canvass that when we come back from the ad break. You're still watching Politics Unscripted with me, Bongi Weswane, standing in for my colleague, Oli Mgambi. Let's continue then our conversation with the former National Police Commissioner Riah Phiyega, who was the central figure in the Marikana Massacre story 9 years ago. She had only been in the position for just over 2 months, 64 days to be exact, when the events unfolded. She also escaped censure after retiring in 2017, and she still joins us now to really talk to us about some of her recollections then. Mama Phiyega, when we look at the the operation in and itself, there's been a lot of criticism when you look at that particular plan by the police to disperse the striking miners, and thus even getting us to a point where we're finding ourselves today talking about this tragedy. Looking back at the operational part of this dispersal plan, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Thank you, Bongi, for that question. I think the first thing that I would like to say is that the role of the National Commissioner is clearly defined in the Act. And I do not believe, after having served there for 3.5 years and having gone through the various commissions, that anything in that regard needs to change. I think it is well set out. If you go to the Constitution, you would pick up that the Constitution prescribes that there should be 10 leaders of policing in the country. It is the National Commissioner, and the 9 provincial commissioners. Together as a board of commissioners, they should put their heads together and ensure that they manage the police service. The other issue that I'd like to refer to in terms of the question that you are raising around operations is that the Police Act is very, very prescriptive in terms of how public order policing should be put together and how it should be managed. It is one of the specialist units that there is a very specific prescription for. In Section 17 of the Act, there is an instruction of law that requires the National Commissioner to establish a public order policing unit. The National Commissioner has very specific functions equally in terms of that instruction. The National Commissioner must ensure, A, that that unit is established, B, that of the establishment of police, there are people who are dedicated to be part of the public order policing. Thirdly, the National Commissioner has a duty to ensure that those dedicated to be public order policing officers should be trained specifically to do public order policing. And in the police service, I'm sure you can see them, they're distinct. They wear a red badge. Fourthly, the National Commissioner must ensure that there is adequate resourcing for that unit. The fifth thing that the National Commissioner is prescribed by law to do is to wait for the requests of the provincial commissioners who would have done their own assessments in their provinces in terms of the extent and scope of public order policing incidences and what they need in order for them to be able to offer that service to the nation.
So do I understand? Pardon me, Mama.
Let me just finish this one. It's very important.
Yes.
The Act then indicates to you as the National Commissioner that as soon as that unit is dedicated to the province, the provincial commissioner should take full control and full charge of that unit. So it allows the provincial commissioner to take charge of operations in their province. And Marikana was a provincial operation.
So do I hear you correctly? Are you saying then that, the former provincial commissioner, Zukiswa Mbombo, was the one in charge of this operation with William Mbembe as the overall commander?
Fully so, and rightfully so, as the law requires. General Mbombo, as the provincial commissioner of Northwest, was in charge of the operation, and remember, she also had a duty to set up what we called a joint operations committee for that specific operation, which, as you have already indicated, was headed by General Pembe, who was the head of public order policing in that province.
So a short while ago, a colleague of mine, Tembegile Mkhototo, spoke to AMCU leader Joseph Matunja, who says that he doesn't think you should be the only one to be taking responsibility for what happened in Marikana. Do you take some responsibility as one who was at the helm of police at the time for what transpired on the 16th, despite this operation then being in the hands of your provincial counterparts?
Okay. There are two elements of responsibility that I'd like to talk to. As a national commissioner, then, who was leading the police service, I had the duty to take moral responsibility on behalf of the entire service for that incident. The second part of taking responsibility talks to vicarious responsibility, which talks to that secondary responsibility that says the service should take responsibility for the victims of that, because that happened during the course of duty of policing. And it is in that sense that it has always been my belief, even when I had my first consultation with the president, that the victims of Marikana need to be compensated by the government, because their families are going to enjoy a lot of suffering. And I was talking about the entire 44 because they were all part of the operation. So the responsibility and duty sits in both the moral responsibility and moral duty as a leader of the service. Secondly, vicarious responsibility in terms of the service.
So
the Commission has made recommendations in terms of other issues. If there are criminal issues that are emanating from that, the law has to take its due course.
So do we point then the questions about who would have made the decision to bring those mortuary vans in the morning, the 3,000 rounds of live ammunition? Do we take those to the provincial commissioner or the overall commander? Because even in the commission, this issue was really still unclear about who made this decision and why this decision was made.
I'm baffled by the fact that the leaders and those who were in operations appeared before the commission. And I am taking it that the commission had the opportunity to question all those who were in charge of planning that operation. And the issues, if my memory serves me well, were canvassed at the commission. I just don't, I may not have the nitty-gritties in terms of how they were responded to, because if those issues were part of their planning, those who were in charge of operations needed to explain how all those issues that you're raising fitted into the plan that they had put together for that operation.
I can't help but ask you this at the back of what you're saying. Do I understand you correctly to be saying then that you were and still are the scapegoat for what happened in Marikana?
I asked myself the same question that you're asking, because all I see every year at this time, and when I read the narrative when I open the computer, is that perhaps for the moral responsibility that I spoke about earlier, it appears that the face and the icon of Marikana is General Riah Phiyega. So for that, I'm saying there is much more work that needs to be done. There are a lot of reports on the investigation. There is footage galore that you all show. And I just hope that the narrative and the conversations could look at all those elements. I'm starting to see some of that emerging. I was looking at one of your programs yesterday, and I was inspired. I was having hope that conversations in the country would start looking at the very troubling issues that are related to this operation. I can tell you where I'm sitting that I think Marikana was a huge systemic failure. And I'm saying so because that was a labor dispute, which in my opinion was mismanaged. If there was time was intervention by those who were to appreciate the frustration of these workers, and frustration that was real. I've been making some comparisons. I just looked at the average earnings of miners in Australia and average earnings of miners in South Africa. The lowest miners in Australia earn 5 times more than the lowest miners here. Those issues, and they are probably, mining similar minerals? And those are questions that we as a nation have to answer, to start saying, what is the responsibility and duty of those who are running corporations that are in mining? I would raise questions around, where was the Department of Minerals and Energy? Because there are mining charters. If you look at the conditions of squalor and poverty from which these frustrated workers were coming from, those are big questions and conversations we should have as a nation. When a labor strike, continued for 10 days with 10 casualties of ordinary workers who were thinking that they are protected, their rights of wanting to go to work, they could do so, security people who were taking care of security of mines, police who were at work, and protesting miners. Where was the Department of Labor? Because they emerged after the effect. And those are questions and conversations that we should have as a nation.
Part of the conversation we need to have.
To say there was a whole issue around, unions that were at each other's throat. I can tell you that before the 16th, we had a meeting with Franz Baleni and his team in our office, and we were pleading to say what else can be done to ensure that there's a peaceful resolution of this. We met with Ntate Matunjo and his team at Birchwood Hotel, and we were pleading to say, guys, is there something that can be done? Where was the province where these mines are operating? I can go on and on and on and say this huge systemic failure requires us as South Africans to deal with it. Police can never be a raincoat for unresolved labor dispute. We have seen these things happening just 3 weeks ago in KZN. Police can never be a raincoat for problems that are endemic. We need different discussions in order to deal with those. And I hope that these discussions will come to a point where, police can be assisted not to do that. Police equally were part of the systemic failure. That violence was unproportional.
And when you talk about police being part of the systemic failure, 9 years later, not a single police official is standing trial for what happened on the 16th of August. We're only seeing some cases around what happened in the days before. And it boggles the mind as to, if this happened in full view of the world, why is no one behind bars?
Maybe to just correct that, yes, the case that is on, if I am following correctly in the press, I saw that there's a case that is related to the 13th. I think earlier on there was a case that is related to the 16th. I think there was some
of Ntate van Wyk Sagalala. Yes, and that, of course, those officers in that case have now been let go of, and that was just one. But for that shooting there at the, near the kraal, where everyone can see, no one is behind bars.
My response to you would also be that South Africa is not short of legislation and bodies to look into this. I'm really hoping that institutions such as IPED and the NPA are busy at work, and that we can start seeing solution. And you're quite right, the issues that you're mentioning, to say in full view of everybody, evidence is there, the commission was there, and I'm hoping that somewhere else as a nation and the families of these victims can find closure and something can be done.
Can I take you back to a statement you made, which you came under fire for, that what happened there represented the best of responsible policing? You came under heavy fire for that statement, and others, even as we posted, a poster that you're going to be on the show, still say that you appeared to be praising the police for killing the 34 mine workers on the 16th of August.
I will deconstruct that statement that you've just made and give you feedback as follows. That statement forms part of an off-the-cuff talk I am making at a parade of police on the 20th of August. I've had the opportunity of discussing what I had said at the commission. I've had the opportunity of discussing the same statement during the inquiry of Judge Klassen, where I had a disciplinary hearing. I explained myself very clearly, and if you were to take the off-the-cuff talk that was later scripted, that was never the intention. But I also do not take issue with people who have lifted just that part of my statement and made many comments around it. I can tell you that this was one of the charges in my inquiry, which is almost a disciplinary, and Judge Klassen actually acquits me of that one. And I want to read you what he had said in terms of that. Judge Klassen says, when he said, as to the third question to be answered, the board found that the National Commissioner's statement of the 20th August 2012 did not impede or frustrate the work of the Falam Commission of Inquiry. Consequently, we recommend that she be acquitted on that charge. The reason I made that statement, I got to a parade and I could see the traumatized police. And I just want to say to you, remember, they are equally human. They did not come unscathed out of the incident of Marikana. And I'm saying this because when I went back to the office, I just wanted to understand the depth and scope of public order policing in SAPS. The statistics they gave me was that since 1994 up to that period in 2012, they had processed 1.5 million public order policing incidences. In that particular year, under question, which is 2012, by August, they had processed something like 33,000. Yes, there had been some mishaps here and there. It was never, they had never met this type of calamity and devastation. They were devastated. I can tell you that they were shocked. And as I was there, as the leader supporting the provincial team, we were asking the very same people to say, you still need to be out in the community to ensure that we restore calm, we restore peace. And all I was recognizing was the fact that they had spent many hours at work. I was recognizing that they have tried as much as possible to follow the prescripts and the standing order procedures that they are supposed to operate upon. I was at no point trying to water down the calamity that was being faced by the country, the service, and the victims. And if you continue and read that statement, immediately after saying that, I tell them that the nation is mourning, and we are mourning with this nation. I tell them that the president has announced a week of mourning. I continue in my statement to say to the police, the president has announced that there is likely to be a commission of inquiry. And I plead with them and I say, members, you were there at the operation. I request that you fully support the commission. Go to the commission. Tell your truth. Help the nation to get the answers. If indeed I didn't have that type of intention, and you read the entire message that I had given, I would not have mentioned some of those things.
Now, when
but
we look...
I also do not take issue, Bongiwe, that somebody could have picked up just that phrase and put it whatever. And because it was an off-the-cuff discussion and maybe my choice of words, which is what the Falam Commission also indicated to say, at times also check what you're saying.
Let's look at this issue of the cover-up, because it has come out, and I'd like to read some of what the people who were asked in the Mail and Guardian about this current litigation, this case that you have to try and clear your name. Advocate Jeff Butlender says the findings of the Falam Commission were fully and clearly justified and explained. In my opinion, there's no basis for this litigation, which appears an unwarranted waste of public money. If she feels so strongly about the matter, she should fund this herself. And he's referring to the fact that you're still using the state's money to be able to fight this battle to clear your name. And you then hear Nomzamo Zondo from the Socio-Economic Rights Institute, who says that, Phiyega seeks to attack the Commission's conclusions and not the facts. If you take the facts independently, you still reach the same conclusions about a police cover-up. She's then alluding to this cover-up that even the Commission was also talking about, to say that there was this undisclosed meeting that the police had to try and cook up a version, and also then this missing memory stick that we still don't know what happened in the National Management Forum meeting. When you look at all of these things, it doesn't look like police are escaping the allegations of a cover-up on what happened here.
Thank you, Bongiwe, for that. What I am doing is indeed in pursuit of justice. And I'll explain what I mean by that. I am accused with other leaders in the police service for having lied and misleading the commission. And remember, we would have done so under oath. It is a huge indictment for any person to lie under oath. It is even a deeper indictment when you are a law enforcement officer. It was important for me to deal with those issues, and I'll tell you why. Anyone can go to the transcripts of the Falam Commission. They can read many other pages. I just want to tell them that go to day 68 of that transcript and read my submissions and my engagement with the chairperson, with my lawyer, Advocate Advocate Semenya SC, with Advocate Bezos SC, may his soul rest in peace, with Judge Falam. On that day, I give a very clear account of what happened on the 15th of August. I tell the judge that we had a National Management Forum meeting. I tell the judge that after that meeting, we had another extraordinary meeting with the provincial commissioners. In my affidavit to the commission, I disclose the meeting. In my affidavit to the commission, I tell the commission that at that meeting during tea time on that day, the provincial commissioner tells me that they would have implemented the operation on the 15th, but have postponed because the unions have asked for more time, and it looks like there will be a solution. However, if there's no solution, she needs additional resources. What additional resources? For example, each province has one water cannon, and she's saying, I might need another water cannon. I might need more nyanas. I might need more people. And how it works, Bongi, in terms of public order policing. The commissioner who's in charge of a province can move her resources wherever she wants in a province. But if she's going to look for additional resources from other provinces, she just doesn't jump and go to Eastern Cape to say, borrow me a water cannon. They would come to headquarters, and the divisional head of ORS would then be given the responsibility to discuss with the provincial commissioners and see how they can assist, taking into account their own operations in the provinces. And on the basis of that, I then said to the provincial commission, because the provincial commissioners are part of this meeting, when we finish, because they are here, we will make an opportunity for you to talk to them and ask for that. All those issues were testified for in the commission. The people who attended that meeting were asked to submit affidavits. They did. And also the fact that this matter was also canvassed in the disciplinary inquiry. And I'm going to read you what Judge Klassen has said in terms of this very matter.
Unfortunately,
his finding, I must tell you about his finding. His finding says, as to the first question to be answered, the board found in favor of the National Commissioner that she did not mislead the Falam Commission of Inquiry by not disclosing that during her initial evidence as to the existence of the extraordinary meeting of the Management Forum meeting held on the 15th of August. So I explained this, and the finding of Klassen in my disciplinary inquiry tells everybody that I never lied about that. This Judge Falam calls me on day 288 from day 68 to tell me that I have heard from a whistleblower that there was a meeting on the 16th. And remember, when he invites me, he doesn't even tell me what he's going to tell me. I tell him that, Judge, in writing and orally, I have testified about this. He tells me I am lying. And what is also concerning to me, that I'd like the pursuit of justice to look into, is that he tells me that he had that from a whistleblower. The commission dealt with whistleblowers. There was a Mr. X. Mr. X submitted an affidavit. Mr. X gave oral evidence. This whistleblower that Judge Falam spoke about never submitted an affidavit that I needed to answer to, never testified at the commission. So I do want to get justice on these matters, because it matters that as the then officer of the law, I could not have lied under oath. My integrity and the integrity of the service matters. So we need to push that so that this conversation with the nation, and that is why you are saying there are still many people who believe in that, and that tells me that we need to bring this matter to a point where justice can prevail.
All right, I hope this is not the last we're speaking about this matter, because we're out of time and there's a lot of questions that still remain that we really need to zoom into when it comes to what happened in Marikana. But thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and for really just taking us then into some of what you believe, as you say that, you know, you still need to clear your name on some of what you believe that you did not lie about. And I hope then that we can be able to explore this conversation further. Thank you so much for your time. That was former Police Commissioner Riah Phiyega.